We're going to be doing solving equations with variables on both sides of the equal sign. So number 1, we have 4n plus 5 equals 6n plus 7. Our middle point of every equation is the equal sign, so I like to draw a line down the middle just so I can see that 4n plus 5 is on one side of the equal sign and 6n plus 7 is on the other side of the equal sign. Remember that what I do on one side, I have to do the same thing on the other side of the equal sign. Okay, so let's go ahead and start. We have two variable terms in this problem. A variable is a letter, so any term or section that has a letter is called a variable term. 4 multiplied by n is a variable term. 6 multiplied by n is a variable term. The 5 has no variable, and the 7 has no variable. What we want is to get all of the variable terms on one side of the equal sign and the constant terms or the number terms on the other side of the equal sign. When we move across an equal sign, so if we take this whole thing and move it across, we have to add or subtract. We're doing the opposite of what it says to begin with. So if I were to move the 6n over to this side, I would have to add or subtract. And if I move the 5, I would also have to add or subtract. If I want to break apart, so since this is multiplication, to break it apart, I would divide. Okay, so let's go ahead and try to get all of our variables on one side and constants on the other side. I like to move variables first, and I like to move the smaller variable to go with the bigger variable. So I'm going to move this 4n to go with the 6n. When I move it across an equal sign, I add or subtract. And since this one is a positive 4n, I'm going to subtract 4n. And remember, whatever I do on one side, I also have to do the same thing on the other side. My goal is to get this to equal 0 because I don't want this 4n on the same side as the constants. So this would equal 0 because it's 4n minus 4n. Over here I have a positive 5 still equals 6n minus 4n is 2n, and then I still have a positive 7. So I have a constant here, a variable here, and another constant here. Now I have all of my variables on one side, which is good, but now I need to get my constants on the opposite side. So I don't want this 7 with the 2n because this one is not a variable, and I have all of my variables on this side. So I'm going to move this 7 to be with the 5. Because it's a positive 7, I'm going to subtract 7. Because 7 minus 7 equals 0, this term is now gone. And I have 2n. Over on the other side, I have 5 minus 7, which gives me a negative 2. Okay, so now I have all of my constants on the right-hand side and all of my constants on the left-hand side and all of my variables on the right-hand side. So once we get to this point, I also do not want the 2 with the n because my goal is to get n equals. I want the n alone. If the n is not alone, my answer is not complete. I'm not finished with the problem. Okay, since this says 2 multiplied by n, and I know that the opposite of multiplication is division, I'm going to divide by 2. When I divide by 2, I get a 1n. Negative 2 divided by 2 is a negative 1. 1n is the same as n, so my answer is complete, and I have n equals negative 1. Let's try the next one. On this one, I have a 3p variable and a negative 4p variable. My constants are negative 8 and positive 13. There's my middle. Okay, because 3 is bigger than negative 4, I'm going to move my variable negative 4p to go with my 3p. And because it's negative, I'm going to add 4p and add 4p. Over here, negative 4p plus 4p equals 0. I still have a 13. I still have the negative 8. And over here I have 3p plus 4p, which is 7p. Okay, so I have a variable, another constant, and a constant. Because I have my variables here now, I don't want this constant with the variable. So I'm going to move the constant to the opposite side with the 13. Because it's a negative 8, I'm going to add 8 and add 8. Because what I do on one side, I have to do the same thing on the other side. I still have 7p, but this is equal to 0. Negative 8 plus 8 equals 0. 13 plus 8 equals 21. And here I have all of my constants and my variables on an opposite side. My variables are here on the left and my constants are on the right. So at this step, I want the p alone. So because this says 7 multiplied by p, I'm going to divide by p because division is the opposite. Division is the opposite of multiplication. So 7 divided by 7 gives me 1p, which is the same as just p. 21 divided by 7 is 3. And that's my final answer. P is equal to 3. Last one. On this one, I have a variable and a variable, but I only have one constant. So I'm going to leave that constant where it is because if I want my constants together, they're already together. Now I just need to get my variables together. And I want the variables on the opposite side from the constant. So since my constants will stay here, I'm going to move the variable to the other side. So I move the 2x to the 3x. It's a positive 2x, so I'm going to subtract 2x and subtract 2x. 2x minus 2x gives me 0. I have negative 12 left. 3 minus 2 is 1x. And remember, 1x is the same as x. So my answer is x equals negative 12.